Today, I will be taking a look at Fight Club. Originally released in 1996 and written by American journalist Michael Charles Palahniuk, the book was later turned into a film in 1999 and directed by David Fincher and starred Hollywood heavy hitters Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. The story revolves around the narrator, played by Edward Norton, a sad, lost soul plagued with insomnia and struggling to figure out his place in the world. He works as an automobile recall coordinator. Most of the time, it's a boring desk job, but occasionally he gets to travel across the U.S., deciding whether or not a car company should issue a recall.
Take the number of vehicles in the field, A, multiply it by the probable rate of failure, B, then multiply the result by the average out-of-court settlement, C. A times B times C equals X. If X is less than the cost of a recall, we don't do one.
One day, after seeing his doctor, he suggests that he drop in on some support groups for people who are terminally ill, in hopes that he might gain some perspective in life. But instead, he becomes addicted to it. He begins attending more and more groups, ranging from life-threatening parasites to various types of cancers. To me, the whole notion of a doctor prescribing this seems a little unethical. Maybe the doctor might need to get his license revoked for a while. After several weeks of hijacking multiple support groups, he meets Marla Singer, played by Helena Bonham Carter. Is it just me, or does her name sound a little regal? Like every time she enters a room, there should be an old guy in a tuxedo there just to announce her presence, like, now entering Helena Bonham Cartier III. You know what, that might just be me. The sight of her infuriates him. In his own words, she's a faker, completely disregarding the fact that he does not have cancer and is not terminally ill, thus making him also a faker. This whole scene gives me elementary school vibes. The narrator is just a boy trapped in a man's body. And like a boy in elementary school who yanks on the pigtails of his crush before shoving her into the mud, he yells at and berates her because he lacks emotional maturity. But eventually the two come to a consensus and agree to divvy up their support groups between them so that they will not run into one another. I think low-key, the narrator wants to take Marla to Pound Town and blow her back out, but he lacks the emotional maturity to express his emotions and get what he wants. Several days later, he meets Tyler Durden. In the novel, they meet on a nude beach, whereas in the movie, they meet on an airplane. I'm okay with this decision. Either way, Tyler tells the narrator that he's a film projectionist. He works with analog film projectors, which require him to change film reels at certain points throughout a movie. Tyler goes on to tell the narrator that he splices in half-second clips of genitals, not long enough for someone to realize what they saw, but long enough for someone to realize that they saw something. After parting ways, the narrator returns to his apartment building to find out that his apartment has been blown to bits. He contacts Tyler to meet up at a local bar. They share a few drinks, and as they leave, Tyler asks the narrator to hit him. A small, awkward fight ensues. Since neither one of them have ever been in a real fight, it's a real sad sight to watch. But they do the same thing every week at the same bar, and eventually they amass a following. Each week, more and more men show up, each wanting their turn to fight. Eventually, the owner of the bar lets them in, and thus, Fight Club is born.
The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
During that time, the narrator moves in with Tyler in his suspiciously large but run-down house. They bond over their daddy issues and the fact that they're both just a pair of lost boys. Not long after, the narrator finds out that Marla and Tyler are in a very intense sexual relationship. One morning, the narrator and Marla have a very awkward encounter in the kitchen. After, Tyler instructs the narrator not to talk about him to Marla, or else. In the novel, Tyler sends chocolates to Marla's mother so she can get fat, get liposuction, and then mail the fat to him. In the movie, Tyler and the narrator just go to a bio-waste site and steal the liposuction fat from there. To me, this makes way more sense because waiting for someone to get fat in order to harvest it would take ages. From there, Tyler explains that he uses fat to make soap for his soap company. He also uses lye to brand narrator.
What is this?
This is a chemical burn. Will hurt more than you've ever been burned, and you will have a scar. What are you doing?
Meanwhile, at the office, the narrator's boss grows increasingly concerned with his behavior and appearance. After being confronted by his boss, the narrator stands up to him, essentially telling him to fuck off. Later on, the narrator blackmails his boss into letting him not have to go into work, but still get paid.
Machine, 52 weekly paychecks, and 48 airline flight coupons. We now had corporate sponsorship. This is how Tyler and I were able to have Fight Club every night of the week.
At a Fight Club meeting, Tyler begins to assign homework. At first, it's just little things like starting fights with random people on the streets, but then it eventually escalates into acts of vandalism. One of my favorite parts of both the film and the novel is the scene with Raymond. He's just some guy working at a convenience store, but he's not living up to his full potential. This scene shows tough love in its purest form. Now, I'm not advocating for anyone to hold any person at literal gunpoint, but maybe you have a friend or a loved one engaging in self-destructive behavior, whether it be drug abuse or an eating disorder, or something along those lines. Maybe you need to hold a metaphorical gun to their head in order to save them from self-destruction.
Going to die. Mom and Dad are gonna have to call up kindly Dr. So-and-so. Dig up your dental records, wanna know why? Because there's gonna be nothing left to face. An expired community college student ID. What'd you study, Raymond?
Biology mostly.
Why? Wanna be Raymond K. Hessel? Raymond was what did you want to be? Jesus.
Veterinarian.
Animals.
Yeah, animals.
That means you have to get more schooling.
Too much school.
Would you rather be dead?
No.
Would you rather die here on your knees in the back of a convenience store?
Please, no.
I'm keeping your license. Gonna check in on you. I know where you live. If you're not on your way to becoming a veterinarian in 6 weeks, you will be dead.
Back at the house, the narrator begins to notice bunk beds in the basement. Then guys from the Fight Club begin to show up on their front step. Tyler tells them to go away, but they stay. Tyler tells the narrator not to just let them in, but insult them and make them wait to prove that they want to be there. To be honest, I see this as an important life lesson. If you want something in life, you can't let anyone tell you no, or you can't, or you're just not good enough. If you really want it, you must fight for it. Now, after several days, Tyler begins to let them in, and brands each of them in the same way he branded the narrator, and dubs them Space Monkeys, before informing them about Project Mayhem.
What's all that? What?
Right. If the applicant is young, tell him he's too young. Old, too old, fat, too fat.
Applicant?
If the applicant then waits for 3 days without food, shelter, or encouragement, he may then enter and begin his training.
Training for what?
I forgot to mention that Tyler also works as a waiter who tampers with the customer's food. In the movie, it's very tame. He just urinates in the soup, whereas in the novel, it's a bit more graphic. He actually ejaculates into the food. There's also a part in the novel where Tyler is catering a fancy private dinner party for a wealthy couple and their friends, and somehow manages to replace all of the ladies' fancy perfume with his urine. The police are trying to find the culprits responsible for the recent string of domestic terrorist attacks. One night at a dinner party being attended by the police chief, Tyler, the narrator, and a group of space monkeys assault the chief in the bathroom, threatening him with castration via elastic band if he does not call off his manhunt. In a car ride with two space monkeys in the back seat, Tyler and the narrator have a very interesting discussion about life and letting go.
Fuck what you know. You need to forget about what you know. That's your problem. Forget about what you think you know about life, about friendship, and especially... Guys, what do you wish you'd done before you died?
Paint a self-portrait.
Build a house. And you?
I don't know. Nothing. Come on, get in the
You
right.
have to know the answer to this question. If you were to die right now, how would you feel about your life?
I don't know. I wouldn't feel anything good about my life. Is that what you want to hear me say? Fine. Come on.
Not good enough. Hitting bottom isn't a weekend retreat. It's not a goddamn seminar. Stop trying to control everything and just let go. Let go!
All right, fine.
At the house on Paper Street, a group of space monkeys get back from a botched plan where the narrator's friend Bob is killed and things get very cult-like.
What happened? What happened?
We were on assignment. We were supposed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Destroy a piece of corporate art.
Operation Latte Thunder, go.
And trash a franchise coffee bar. They shot Bob. They shot him in the head.
But sir, in Project Mayhem, we have no names.
No, you listen to me. This is a man, and he has a name, and it's Robert Paulson. Okay?
Robert Paul.
I understand. In death, a member of Project Mayhem has a name. His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
After Tyler disappears for several days, causing the narrator to become worried, he begins to look for him. He travels to different cities all over the US and begins to realize that fight clubs are everywhere in every major city. But when he tries to inquire about Tyler, they all say the same thing. They say nice try as they wink and call him sir. Eventually, he runs into a chatty bartender and realizes that he, the narrator, is Tyler Durden. This throws him through a loop. He tries to explain to Marla, but from her point of view, Tyler and the narrator have always been the same person. Thus, she has a hard time believing his story. Instead, she thinks he's just a deranged jerk. This pisses off Tyler because he warned the narrator not to talk about him to Marla.
Yeah.
Marla, it's me. Have we ever done it?
Done what?
Have we ever had sex?
This is a trick.
No, Marla, I need to know.
You mean you want to know if I think we're just having sex or making love?
Or not?
You fuck me, then snub me. You love me, you hate me. You show me a sensitive side, then you turn into a total asshole. Is that a pretty accurate description of our relationship, Tyler?
We have just...
You broke your promise.
Jesus, Tyler.
You fucking talked to her about me.
Tyler, what the fuck is going on here?
I ask you for one thing. One simple thing.
The narrator finally figures out Tyler's plan to destroy the credit card companies and force a societal restart. For those of you who don't know, way back in the 90s, the internet was still very new to the public, and online banking and credit card apps just didn't exist, and most files were on paper, on file in a building somewhere. Nearing the film's climax, Tyler and the narrator have their final showdown. I assume the fight is supposed to be a metaphor about conquering your demons and becoming one with your shadow self. I think the book, and more so the movie, is about self-help. Living up to your full potential and becoming the best version of yourself. But first you must let go of life's bullshit. Stop trying to be who or what you think society wants you to be, and just be. To paraphrase a line from the movie, none of us are born special. None of us are unique snowflakes. If you want to be special, you must become special. So to me, the end isn't literally about destroying the economy or restarting society. It's about achieving your dreams, making what you want happen, and by doing so, you will set the world ablaze.